Okay. Hi, everybody. So we are here, and we are ready to talk about Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, the second Harry Potter film. And you have to excuse me because I'm a little under the weather. But I have with me, I have Richard. If you want to say hi,
Hello, I'm Richard, over in the UK.
and I have Abby. If you want to say hi,
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm in Washington right now.
and Jeremy isn't able to make it this week, we're gonna have a lot of fun talking about all things Harry Potter. And so I do have the Q&A. If anybody happens to join us, you can ask questions there. And so I'm going to give my little summary of the movie, and we can then talk about it. So here we go. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It's Harry ignores attempts to keep him from getting to Hogwarts, including Dobby the house elf and the closing of platform 9 3/4. When Harry arrives at Hogwarts, he finds out there is a Chamber of Secrets that is guarded by a creature only the heir of Slytherin can defeat. He also has a stuck-up new professor named Gilderoy Lockhart and is introduced to Ron's family and his sister Ginny. But each of these seem minor annoyances when the real trouble begins and someone or something starts turning Hogwarts students to stone. Could it be Draco Malfoy or a more poisonous rival than ever? Could it possibly be Hagrid, whose mysterious past is finally told? Or could it be the one everyone at Hogwarts most suspects, Harry Potter himself? So that's sort of a little bit of a lead-in. And so I wanted to start out by having Richard talk about some of the differences between the book and the movie. I didn't have time to read the book this time. But what are some of the big differences between the book and movie, Richard?
Well, it is generally very faithful to the book. In fact, it's almost too faithful, really. But I basically thought it read like the screenwriter just read the book and then he cut out some of the bits that were unnecessary. Like in the book, there is something called a Death Day party for Nearly Headless Nick, where Harry, Ron, and Hermione go to the party for ghosts, and that gets cut out because that's really quite pointless. And so that's kind of the reason why the movie runs for nearly 3 hours, because it is a very faithful adaptation of the book, and there's a lot of little things that get cut out really.
Okay.
So if I just having a
So that's it. Just little things.
yeah, I mean
Okay.
like there are some things that get mixed up, like in Diagon Alley when Harry accidentally goes to Knockturn Alley. Then in the book, the Weasleys are all looking for him and they meet up, and then they go to the bookshop. But in the movie, apparently they just went straight to the book to see Lockhart and just thinking, oh well, Harry will find his own way to us. And in the book as well, in the bookshop after Lucius Malfoy insults Arthur, they actually get into a fight.
Oh, that's
Instead of Lucius just walking off. Yeah.
Wasn't there a scene? Is this a movie that had a scene with Harry in the cupboard or something? Doesn't he overhear something in the book?
Yeah, and in the book, he when he gets to Knockturn Alley, he goes into a cupboard, and Draco and his father come into the shop, and I think that might be a deleted scene from the film, but it's there you kind of see how Draco interacts with his father when Harry and other students aren't around.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was after he ends up in Knockturn Alley, and then subsequently goes to Diagon Alley.
Okay, cool. All right, so what are some of your guys' overall thoughts on the rewatch of the film? What about you, Abby? Do you want to start?
Yeah. A couple of things I noticed. The acting definitely improved in this one. I noticed the kids looked significantly older than they did in the other one. Like, it was hard to believe only one summer had passed. But they're also at an age where Like 11 to 12-year-olds have huge growth spurts, so it's somewhat believable. But it's just too long. It's too freaking long. There's just too much movie there.
Yeah. What about you, Richard?
Well, you are right. It is definitely too long. But when you think about it, there's not much you could really cut out without like reworking the structure, which they could have done. They do that a bit in the later films. The acting, I think, is a bit of a mixed bag. Like sometimes the younger actors are a bit better than the previous film. Like in the scene where Harry and Ron are with petrified Hermione in the hospital wing, saying like, "Wish you were here, Hermione." That seems very emotional. But other times it just seems like they're kind of reciting their lines and not putting much effort into it. And I do still like the visual style, which is very similar to the previous film. That works very well. And one thing I was going to say earlier about the difference between the book and the movie is kind of the portrayal of Ron and Hermione. And I was finding that this film really doesn't do Ron any favors. Like it really portrays him as quite stupid, and it gives a lot of his See, one thing that Ron does a lot in the books is give exposition about the Wizarding World, because he's the only one of the three main characters who actually grew up in the Wizarding World. And so he's the one who knows what a mudblood is, and he knows what a Parselmouth is. But in the movie, that's all Hermione. Hermione just says all this stuff because Hermione is smart. And then Ron is I find he does pull a lot of silly faces in this film, like when they're in the car and they see the trains behind them, and then in the forest with the spiders. And I mean, in the forest as well. In the book, Ron really clearly doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be following these spiders into this big, scary forest. But he's still ready and willing to do it because Hermione needs their help. He's willing to do anything that's going to help Hermione. But in the movie, he's all whining and like, "Oh, Harry, I don't like this. Can we go back now?" So no, it's not a very good film for Ron, really.
Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, so my overall thoughts was that I was kind of bored. I didn't really like it that much. And there's very little Snape, which I think is the best part of the Harry Potter movies, is Snape. He's not in it hardly at all. And I'm not saying it's like horrible or anything. It's not like a bad movie, but I don't know. I'm just finding these Harry Potter movies so far just not holding up. They're not as special as I remembered them. And I don't know. Hopefully it's just these first two. But I found myself honestly drifting off to sleep at a couple points. I was a little, granted I've been a little under the weather, but I was bored. I really was. It just, I don't know, all the stuff with Tom and the chamber, and I don't know, it just wasn't enough story kind of to keep me going. But
all that stuff seemed to work better for me in the book.
Yeah.
They're book things, not movie things.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so what did you think about the introduction of Dobby? How did you like that? Do you think the special effects hold up pretty well? Did you like his character? What about you, Abby?
I think the special effects held up okay, but I think doing him in CG was a mistake. I think
would have been better as a puppet.
Yeah, when I was reading, this was the first movie that I read the book before I saw the movie, and when I read it, I was certain that they would make Dobby either like some kind of stop motion kind of situation or a puppet. And I think either one of those options would have worked so much better for him. I just think that was a real mistake. I think the way we meet him is fine, and I think his the voice work for him is okay, and the visual representation of him looks like I expected Dobby to look to some degree. Maybe I expected him to be a little more cute and a little less gargoyle-ish, but I think overall it pretty much worked.
Yeah. Well, I definitely do think the visual effects do hold up. He does look pretty good. I think there was originally a plan to use an animatronic, but they decided they'd have more freedom as a CGI character. I remember this was back in 2002, so the same time that the Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers was coming out, and that had Gollum, this completely CGI character, which everybody was very happy with. Yeah. And so I do think Dobby still works, and I couldn't see anything wrong with the special effects.
Well, Gollum is a motion capture, which is a little bit different. It gives a little more realism to it. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine. He was fine. In my opinion, he's just supposed to be kind of annoying, I think. Just kind of a pest.
I mean, the Riff Tracks calls him the Jar Jar Binks of the Harry Potter universe, which I think is a bit overboard.
Yeah, that's probably a little harsh.
Yeah, I mean, he is a bit annoying in this book because he causes Harry so much trouble. But then he does turn up again in the subsequent books, and he's a lot more helpful. Though unfortunately in the films, because his role in the future books is not really essential until Deathly Hallows, it isn't until Deathly Hallows that we see him again in the films.
Yeah. And he lacks the over-the-top, silly, potty humor of Jar Jar Binks. He's not...
Well, yeah.
He is the annoying guy, but he's not...
Well, he's not in the movie as much either.
Yeah, that's true.
No, he's not. He's not in the movie that much, no.
As Jar Jar is. Okay, so we meet two sets of wizarding parents, or families. We meet the Weasleys and the Malfoys. And what did you think of these families and how sort of I feel like the movie, the book, kind of sets them up as the polar opposites of the wizarding world.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what did you think about them? What about you, Richard? Do you want to go first?
Okay. Well, we don't really see that much of either of them, either the Mr. and Mrs. Weasley or Mr. Malfoy in the film. But you do get an idea of the dynamic between Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. Like, you see, Mrs. Weasley is very caring towards Harry. Just when he turns up, she just immediately offers him his breakfast, and but then she does show a lot of she isn't afraid to show discipline towards her own children.
Yeah, the screamer.
Yeah, and the dynamic between her and Mr. Weasley when she tells him about the car, and Mr. Weasley is at first like, oh, how did it go? And then he gets his look from her, and he's like, well, that was very wrong, boys. He's a little bit of a henpecked husband, yeah. And Mr. Malfoy was very pleased with Jason Isaacs' portrayal. It's just his grown-up version of Draco, very arrogant. But you don't really see much of his parenting in this. It's only in the book where you kind of see he kind of bullies Draco a little bit. He's very aloof with him, doesn't really show him much affection. I don't know if you noticed, by the way, but when Lucius is at the at the end of the film, after Harry sets Dobby free and he starts advancing on Harry with his wand, he starts saying Avada, which is the killing curse. So in the film, he's about to murder Harry right in front of Dumbledore's eyes, apparently.
I didn't notice that.
No, and I think Jason Isaacs said that that was the first spell that came into his head.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh, cool.
I was wondering, do you guys think that Lucius is over the top at all in these movies?
Not really, no.
I mean, he's definitely like a villain. I don't think they ever really show like a softer side of him that I can recall. I mean, I think I'm trying to think. Yeah, he's just one of those all bad kind of stock characters.
Yeah, it's only like in the later films where he's in this quite bad position with Voldemort. He's fallen out of favor and he has to sort out his priorities with regards to his family. But you get a little bit more of a different side to him.
Yeah, you get a little bit more of a human out of him. I mean, I think he works because we're kind of getting everything through Harry's perspective. Not that it's told from Harry's perspective, but we're very much on Harry's side, and that's the lens we're seeing this story through. So I think it makes sense that he's just this one-dimensional bad guy, because that's how he seems to Harry, and that makes a lot of sense.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, I feel like with the Weasleys, everything's painted a kind of English cottage, warm, nurturing, loving, kind of a thing. But then, like the Malfoys throughout the story, not just this book, but I mean this movie, is cold. It's steel. It's white. It's it's like it's racist. It's it's everything opposite. Like I just feel like the two families are kind of the complete opposite.
Yeah, that is definitely a good point. I mean, the Malfoys just seem very sterile, where the Weasleys, what we see of it is just very warm and cozy, as are the people themselves.
So
I don't. Oh, go ahead.
It's like the two sort of contrasts within the wizardy world. I feel like in sort of encapsulated in family form.
Yeah. One thing about the Weasleys, I do like. I think they did a really good job of kind of using visual elements to make them feel like this is a really warm family, and we're all kind of unified, and we have a mom that looks out for us and cooks us yummy food, and a dad that goes off to work, and very traditional nuclear family kind of going on there. What doesn't come off in the films, and I don't think you can really portray it to the extent that it's in the book, is how meaningful it is to Harry to be included in this.
Oh yeah, because obviously Harry has no family, does he?
He has no family. This is his first time being there, and then Mrs. Weasley is kind to him and feeds him and mothers him, and he's never been mothered before.
No, he hasn't. No.
And it's so meaningful to him, and from that first time at their house, you get that feeling of this is his surrogate family. And I don't know that I fully got that from the movie representation of it.
No, because the
but
book
I
is
don't know
able
that
to.
you really could either.
No, the book is able to take more time with it, just talk about the experiences he has and go into his head and how he feels about it.
Right.
Whereas in the movie, it would just take even more time.
Exactly.
So, moving on, so not platform 9 3/4. Of course, Dobby tries to get Harry to not go to Hogwarts, and then platform 9 3/4 is closed off. Excuse me. And so Harry and Ron decide to drive to Hogwarts. And was this the best solution for them? And did the special effects hold up as far as the car and all of that to you? What about you, Abby?
I thought the car was fun. I mean, it's a fun element that kind of we start to bring in this idea of how Muggles fit into this wizarding world and how these how they interact, I guess, which I think was a cool element. I thought the car looked good. There was some green screen work that wasn't the greatest in a couple of scenes. The part where Harry's hanging out of the car by the handle. Hey, Richard, did that happen in the book? Did he?
No, he never falls out of the car in the book. They don't like get nearly run over by the train. That's just in the film.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. So I was like, why did they do that? It didn't look very good. It just kind of made the movie longer, I thought.
Yeah, well, I think they just wanted to insert a little bit more action in there.
Yeah.
I was glad because this movie needed more action. But yeah, I didn't mind the special effects. I thought they were fine, and it seemed like a natural sort of solution for them to do. I loved your tweet yesterday, Abby, about the Whomping Willow. That was really funny.
Like, what? Who sends their kids to this school? Like, I mean, you think about Hogwarts overall. Like, this is the most dangerous place ever. Why would you send your child there with no adult supervision, basically?
It is a safeguarding officer's nightmare.
And I mean, you got spiders and people getting petrified and all kinds of crazy stuff.
And they know there's this chamber where there's a basilisk. Like, adults are they?
There's not even like a fence by the Forbidden Forest, is there? Anyone could just tell the students, please don't walk in there.
Yeah. Don't go there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was gonna say with I
oh,
was gonna say with the car, by the way, I felt it was I didn't think it really was the best decision to do. I mean, why couldn't they just wait a few minutes to see if Mr. and Mrs. Weasley could get back through the barrier, and then maybe either they could send an owl to Hogwarts or Mr. Weasley could drive them.
yeah.
But and I'm kind of wondering if maybe they just thought, what, they're just these 12-year-old boys who thought to themselves it'd be really cool to fly the car to Hogwarts, and also they need the car later on in the scene with the spiders. So that's one reason why they have to bring the car to Hogwarts, because that's the only way they're going to get away from the spiders.
That's true.
Well, and isn't there like a charm on Hogwarts? Like how do people, like, if they don't get there through the train, like, I guess anybody can see it as long as they're in the Wizarding World or something?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay. All right. So, my next question is, so is it outside of Hermione's character to suggest the Polyjuice potion? Like, she's such a, I feel like she's sort of a stickler to the rules, and then in this, she, sort of suggests or uses her skills at least to go outside of the rules to solve this. Do you think that's outside her character? What about you, Richard?
Well, firstly, I think the events of the first film would have affected Hermione's view on this a bit. I mean, they went outside the rules, and the result was that Voldemort didn't get the Philosopher's Stone. So I think she'd be a bit more open to it after that. And secondly, Hermione herself is a Muggleborn, and has just been told that the monster in the chamber is going to be targeting Muggleborns. So that's going to give her an extra motivation to try and do something about it. So maybe she's kind of thinking I and people like me are going to be in danger if we don't sort this out.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's in line with her character development.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit outside of, like, what you would expect from her, but I think it's part of her character growth, because while she is really strict about rules, she's also a very moral person. Like, she really knows the difference between right and wrong, and she's willing to do what's right, even if it's against the rules, even though it kind of pains her to do that.
I mean, it's not until the fifth film they're saying, like, it's quite exciting, isn't it, breaking the rules? And,
Yes.
And everyone says to her, who are you and what have you done with Hermione Granger?
When does she have the times changing? What book is that?
Yeah, that's the third book, so it's the next film.
Okay. Okay, so next, I have, what about this idea of the heir of Slytherin? Does the film create compelling mystery around his or her identity? What do you think, Abby?
I don't think so. I remember that being, like, when you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. In the book, you don't forget about it, and it matters, but in the movie, I don't know that it's all that big a deal. It's more like, oh, Harry's a weirdo, he can speak Parseltongue. He's bad.
Yeah.
No, there's just in the movie there's just not enough examination of the different candidates. And when they're kind of first talking about Malfoy, you can kind of guess it's going to be a red herring. And like Abby says, there's just in the book there was this real sense of panic at the chamber being open. Everybody was really worried for their own safety, and there's no sense of that in the film. There's no sense of the atmosphere at Hogwarts really changing, except for people being a bit suspicious of Harry. So it's so it's not really perfect in the book either, but it's a bit lame in the film, really.
One part that I really liked was the duel between Malfoy and Harry. I guess you call it a duel. I thought that was sort of fun, and I guess that's where you see Snape the most. Well, that and when he's mad at Harry for the Whomping Willow, that was pretty fun. But yeah, I agree. I think that it's just boring. Instead of being compelling, it's boring.
It's very flat.
What's that?
It feels the movie overall feels very flat to me.
Yeah, it does.
Like, the action isn't that exciting. There's just not that much to it.
I mean, I wonder if we've just been spoiled by either the other movies in the series, or because I just remember being so charmed by this movie when I first saw it, and I don't know. I think maybe we've just been a little bit spoiled.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Too, I also think it's the type of a movie that's more fun on first viewing, for one thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Some movies you watch over and over, and some are just kind of not. They're fun the first time, and then you're done with them. And I also think it does hold up as a kids movie. My daughter is just about to turn 7, and she didn't watch the first part with me because I started it at night after she'd gone into bed. But then I got up this morning and I watched the end of it. And she was really drawn into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. How old's your daughter?
Like the scary parts, I kept having to explain to her. She's funny because if she knows how they do it, how they make it look like something scary is happening, then she can handle it. So I kept having to pause and explain to her, which means she was scared. Like, she felt tense about it. And
how old is she?
She's turning 7 in a week.
Yeah. My nieces, when I told them that I didn't love the movie, they were not happy about that at all. They were really mad at me.
It's still a really fun movie. They really buy it.
Yeah. Okay, so next is excuse me. Next is how did you feel the film handled Tom Riddle and the flashback with Hagrid? What about you, Richard? What do you think?
Well, I quite liked the whole flashback. That wasn't done too badly. I did like how it's in kind of this black and white sepia tone to kind of set it apart from the real world, and also to kind of give it this old feel. And I don't think there's that much to say about the flashback because it basically reiterates what was in the film, what was in the book, I mean. And Tom Riddle himself is done very well. The actor, I think his name is Christian Coulson. He acts him very well, gives in this this quite nasty feel, but it's this kind of suaveness as well.
But
so
I don't think he's like Malfoy, where it's obvious bad guy. I felt like it wasn't 100% sure for me.
He's very manipulative. He can really charm people. That's made very clear in later books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was really well cast too. I thought that bit was done pretty well. In the book, doesn't Harry just see it? He doesn't feel like he's there.
I think he does. I think he does actually go into the memory, like in a pensive, and he's kind of walking around following Riddle. And I think when he first goes through the diary and he sees this man, the old headmaster at the desk writing, he kind of asks him, "Hello, and sorry to just burst in like this," and the guy doesn't react, and that's when he realizes he's just in a memory, and so this man in the memory has no perception of him.
Okay.
He kind of one thing as well in the one thing I noticed in the film is that in the book there's a bit where they talk about, after finding the diary, that it's from the same time that the Chamber of Secrets was last opened, so that's why they have a connection between the diary and the chamber. But then in the film, Harry just starts randomly writing in it, "Do you know about the Chamber of Secrets?" And so that's another thing that just gets cut out, and so it looks a bit weird in the film.
I had that same thought. I was like, what kid just randomly decides to do that?
Yeah.
You know, why would he assume that the diary knows? I don't know. Seemed like a little bit of a leap.
Yeah, and then Ginny never sees Harry with the diary, so how does she know he's got it and then steal it back?
Right.
How do you think that how do you feel about what we learned about Hagrid through those scenes? What do you think, Richard?
Not much I can say. Really, it's just it is quite sad that he was that he ended up being expelled because of this crime that he never committed. He
makes him more a sympathetic character, even.
Yeah, it does. Not that he wasn't a sympathetic character before.
Right. Okay. So Aragog is pretty scary. Is your daughter scared by Aragog, Abby?
I don't
Spider?
think that she saw that part with me.
Okay.
She's seen it before. I don't think it bothers her as much as like the basilisk.
Oh, interesting. Because it would scare me more. Because it's so like creepy.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that scene? How it was handled? Did you like it? What about you, Abby? What did you think of Aragog?
I thought the way they did all the spiders and everything was really good. We mentioned, I don't remember which one of you mentioned earlier, Ron's over-the-top acting.
Yeah.
But it's scary.
He's kind of comic relief.
Yeah. Yeah, his face of that scene. But I mean, I think the spiders in creepiness were equal to what I remember reading in the book. Like that was pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it was one of the better scenes in the film. It's I can't really think of any other way to handle it. Really, it is meant to be a scary scene.
Yeah.
And they do get it across very well. And I don't think it's so scary that I mean, obviously there are a few children who would probably not want to watch it, but I think most of them could handle it. And there's going to be more scary scenes coming up in the later films, so it's almost
That's
like
for sure.
easing people into it.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was well done. It was good. Okay. So I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are you guys hearing that?
No, we're not. I'm not hearing any.
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, good. Okay, maybe it's just me. All right. So next question is Ginny. We have just met, like briefly, and she ends up, being this pretty major character. And I'm wondering if it would have made more sense to have Hermione, a character that we know, be the one to find the book, because we know her and we have some investment in her, whereas Ginny we don't know and don't have any investment in. What do you think, Richard?
Well, you are definitely right about Ginny. I mean, before we get to the chamber, she has like 2 lines, and then appears in 2 other scenes where she doesn't speak. And so within the film, by the time we get to the chamber, we barely know her. So you're watching that and thinking, why should we really care if this person is in danger, apart from the fact that she's Ron's sister? Whereas in the book, you do see a little bit more. I mean, she's not, because Ginny is in a different year from Harry, he doesn't spend that much time with her. And so, but he does see, I think, he looking a bit unhappy sometimes. And then, like I think just a few hours before she goes into the chamber, she goes to Harry and Ron and tries to tell them what's been happening, but then she gets scared off. So that's done better in the book. And as for a different character like Hermione finding a diary, I think if that happened, and if Hermione was acting suspiciously like that, then Harry and Ron would notice. And so it kind of has to be a balance between somebody that Harry would be invested to try and save, but also somebody that he doesn't spend that much time with, so if they're behaving funny, he wouldn't necessarily notice it.
That's a good point.
I think this is actually one case where it worked in the book and not in the movie. This is a case where deviating from the storybook would have been preferable to sticking to it, because in the part of the reason we care about Ginny so much in the first one, and that it's a big deal to Harry, is because we know about how Harry felt at the Weasleys' home. We know the meaning that family is beginning to have for him. And so even though Ginny and he aren't super close, he cares about their family. And that's a little more clear, I think, in the book. Yeah. And in the movie, that doesn't come across. So I think it actually could have worked in the movie to have Hermione do it. And, they would have gotten suspicious of her, and that would have been okay. That could have been part of the story.
Yeah, well, it's either that or give Ginny more of a role, give her more screen time, so the audience is more invested with her. But then again, the movie is long enough as it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it makes sense when you look at the overall story because Ginny is the one person who knows what it feels like to be under Voldemort's power and control. But as far as this movie, I don't know if it 100% works.
No.
So.
Yeah. It would have been interesting to try it with a different character, but I think there would have been the fans wouldn't have been happy. There would have been a lot of fans saying they wanted it to be.
Like, what if it was Neville? That would have been interesting.
It would have, yeah. I mean, obviously, Ginny is kind of more vulnerable to the diary because she's in this this difficult place where she's only just left her family and gone to Hogwarts, and she's trying to make friends, and she's got this crush on Harry, and he barely notices her. Whereas Neville is quite vulnerable as well, isn't he? Because he has very low self-esteem. That's been established in the first film, so that might not have been bad actually using Neville.
Yeah. Okay. So my next question is, so Gilderoy Lockhart, what do you think of him? Kenneth Branagh in the role. Do you think it's sort of a fun character performance, or do you think it's over the top? What about you, Richard?
I think Kenneth Branagh nails it really. I mean, he's obviously a brilliant actor, great character actor, and he just really gets into this performance and captures this narcissism extremely well. Just so he gives off this show of how awesome he is, and then he's really just a complete coward underneath. And I don't know if you noticed, but Rowling has actually said that she based Lockhart on a real person.
No, really? I didn't know that.
She set out to base him on this real person who told lots of lies about how brilliant he was. And I think she said she didn't say who this person was because she didn't want him.
Right.
She didn't want people to be making fun of him, but she reckons he's probably out there now telling people that she based Dumbledore on him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, he is over the top, and I think that totally works, because Gilderoy's character was over the top in the book, too.
Oh, yeah.
He's like an infomercial guy, is how he comes off.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you listened to the audiobook by Stephen Fry?
I don't know if I've listened to that one.
No, because the voice he does for Lockhart sounds like almost like a game show host.
Oh, yeah, funny.
Cool.
I'm not sure
I'm
if I've
Gilderoy
listened
Lockhart, and this is Family Fortunes.
And that's how he comes off. Like, that's how he comes off in the book, and that's how he's supposed to be this cheesy dork.
Yeah.
He's certainly way better than Quirrell, I feel like, as far as a character. Like,
He's much more interesting a character than Quirrell, definitely.
yeah. So, okay, cool. I have two more questions. So, the finale showdown with the basilisk and the Phoenix coming to help and getting all of that whole sequence. How do you feel like that was handled in the movie versus the book, and how do you think compared to, like, in the Sorcerer's Stone, we get it's more of a team feel, and there's all of these challenges, and whereas this is really just Harry and sort of dealing with this basilisk. I don't know. What do you think comparing the two? Abby, you want to go first? What do you think about that scene?
I think it was handled well, and you mentioned it felt more like a team situation. I think in this one. In the first one. And I think in this one, we still get the Ron and Hermione, because without Hermione, they wouldn't have figured out the pipe situation and what a basilisk was and how to get to it. And without Ron, Harry basically couldn't have gotten Lockhart, and he couldn't have. He basically wouldn't have had the courage to go do what he needed to do. So we start to see them more as they're key and they're supportive, but they are supportive. They're not. Yeah. It's not the three of them beating Voldemort. This is Harry, and he needs to take care of this. I think it was handled fine. I don't love the way the basilisk looks. I think the effects are fine, but just like the look of him, I don't know. He didn't look like I imagined it. And hello, the sword. Why is Gryffindor's sword sized for an 11-year-old? That would have been a big old sword. Not this, like, teeny tiny stick.
Maybe it changes.
It's so strange.
Maybe the size changes based on who needs it.
I don't know.
I guess it fits into the sorting hat at one point.
Yeah.
I just remember in the book, it seems like it was heavy for him, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
It seems like it was heavy, and when I imagined him doing this, and I'm imagining him wielding this heavy sword, and in the movie it's like this tiny little 11-year-old sword. It's hardly bigger than a dagger.
That's
So I thought
funny.
that was funny, but
I never would have thought
other
of
than
that.
I think it was handled pretty well. It has the same. It creates the same like feelings of suspense and everything that you get from the book. So I think it was effective.
Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Yeah, I think it went pretty well. I didn't have any problems with the climax. I thought the basilisks and the special effects were okay. The action does get drawn out a little bit more from the book. I mean, there's like this middle segment where Harry is running around in the pipes trying to dodge this basilisk after it's been blinded, before he gets around to using the sword. I didn't mind that, and I don't really mind either that Harry's on his own for this. I mean, like Abby said, there's Ron and Hermione have this more indirect, supportive role, but ultimately Harry is the hero, and sometimes he's gonna have to handle things on his own.
True. Okay. So one of my favorite, as far as quotes, I guess, in the whole series is in this film, actually. I love it when Dumbledore says to Harry, "It is not our abilities that show what we truly are, it is our choices." And I think that is a really, really good message that in the series. And I don't know, do you have any thoughts about that? About sort of Harry's relationship with Dumbledore? I don't know. What do you think, Richard?
Well, firstly, that's one of my favourite quotes as well. I mean, I love the idea of the power of choice being explored in a book. I mean, have you ever read East of Eden by John Steinbeck?
I haven't read that one.
Yeah, because that goes into that sort of thing as well, and then it goes into it more in the later books as well. When we learn about the prophecy and we're investigating predestination versus free will, just how much free will Harry has to go and face Voldemort. Is he still making a choice then? So I do really love that. And as for Harry's relationship with Dumbledore, Dumbledore is still this very wise mentor for him, who is quite distant a lot of the time. And it's going to be in later years that Harry's going to build up this very high level of trust with him, which does get broken sometimes. I mean, particularly in Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore is going to disappoint him a bit sometimes. But it's still a very positive relationship at the moment, and and you can kind of see, even at this point, that Dumbledore has a lot of respect for Harry.
Yeah. It even gets stronger, I think.
Yeah.
Because he tells Harry, like, you must have shown great loyalty to me in order to bring the bird to you.
Oh yeah, that's definitely, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, I really do love that message of, that, like, we all have struggles, we all have things that we're tempted with, but in the end it's our choices that we are responsible for, not our not our abilities or temptations or kind of a thing. I think that's a really good message for kids.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and it really is. It ends up being kind of a theme throughout the rest of the series. I mean, it's one of Harry's key conflicts is, am I what I am because that's what I am, or because that's what I've chosen to be?
Yeah.
And he really grapples with that a lot. So I think that message is clear. When I got to the end of the climax, I paused to see how much, because when you pause, you can see how much is left.
Yeah.
I was like, are you serious? There's 24 minutes. But then we got into the Dumbledore scene, and I was like, okay, you really have to have the Dumbledore scene. You can't cut that out. And then they go to, like, getting Hermione back and all of that. But I do feel like there's too much time between the climax and the end of the movie, but I also feel like that scene with Dumbledore is super important.
It is, yeah. You can't really cut that out.
Mm.
And then you get that really cheesy scene at the end with Hagrid coming back and everybody doing the slow clap.
Yeah.
It's going to be cheesy, isn't it?
That is pretty cheesy. Anytime there's the slow clap, that's usually bad in a movie.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Anyway.
When one person starts clapping and then everybody's like...
They're all silent when he comes in. My daughter, when she saw it, my husband has a Hagrid costume. And so when my daughter saw that scene and Hagrid comes back in, she goes, "Daddy!" And she was all like ready to cheer.
That's funny.
So that did kind of make the slow clap seem a little terrible. Like, these are kids. They love Hagrid. They're going to be happy that he's back. They're not going to stare at him for a minute and then start clapping.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so my last question is, there's no mention of house cups, points in the film. There's Quidditch is briefly mentioned. Do you miss any of those elements? And pretty much we'll be seeing, I guess in 4 you see more of that kind of thing, but we'll be seeing less and less of that as it goes on. I don't know. What do you think, Abby?
I think they're unnecessary. I don't think they're really necessary in the book, but they do serve to create some tensions. Like, it creates more conflict between the students. Which, by the way, as an educator, that's a good sign that it's not a very helpful tool. If the whole point of it, if its only purpose really is to create conflict between students, then you probably aren't doing a very good job.
Huh.
But that isn't, I mean, that's the kind of thing a lot of schools or classrooms do, where you create a little bit of competition. And I think that's the purpose of its existence within the series. And I don't know that that was really needed here, because we already have conflict between Malfoy and Harry. And I don't know, there's kind of inherent conflict between the houses. So we don't need that other element to add to it.
Well, and I feel like the with the people dying, like it just sort of, it makes sense that I'm not dying, getting petrified. It makes sense that, yeah, we're gonna forget about all that other stuff. Like, this is obviously more important.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like in Prisoner of Azkaban is actually the last book where we actually learned about who won the House Championship at the end of the year, and like in the subsequent books, there are still points given and taken away, but there's never any mention of who actually won because there's more serious stuff going on. So I don't really mind it not really being a focus in this film, and also the Quidditch. You probably could have cut that scene, to be honest. Really just the point of that is another attempt by Dobby to get Harry away from Hogwarts, which wasn't really necessary. And really, the Quidditch, I think, on screen would end up becoming quite samey from film to film. You always managed to include it in film to film, and that was one thing that and that was a problem for Rowling as well, because she tended to struggle a bit with writing Quidditch matches and making them all different. So she often tried to get out of writing Quidditch matches when she could.
That's funny.
That's for the best, because I don't like the Quidditch. To me, that's boring. Very boring.
Yeah, I don't really see the point of it. I mean, I guess it makes sense that there would be a sport and there should be a sport, and that's going to be, in some ways, create, competition and conflict. But I feel like Harry Potter would still be really awesome, the whole series, without Quidditch.
Yeah, well, it does give him a proper skill. Like when people tend to ask Harry what he's good at, usually the first thing he thinks of is flying.
That's true.
Yeah.
Just a couple last questions. I guess Moaning Myrtle, do you have any? Was she just sort of a wash for you, or?
I hate Moaning Myrtle. I hate her so much. She's not at all how I pictured her after I read the books.
Yeah.
The actress. Like, no, this is terrible.
The actress is like in her 30s when this was made. Shirley Henderson. I think she was in like her 30s, playing this schoolgirl.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't buy her at all. She's awful.
Yeah, she's
Why
kind of
does she
annoying.
talk in a squeaky voice?
Yeah.
No, I just hate her.
Yeah,
No, I can
she's
do
not
that
really
one.
moaning. She doesn't really moan.
She's screechy and obnoxious.
Whining Myrtle.
Whining Myrtle.
Yes, whining Myrtle. Moaning Myrtle in the book was like they're annoyed by her, but she's kind of like, I don't know that she was really funny, but she wasn't half as annoying as Moaning Myrtle in the movies.
Yeah,
No.
with you there. So this closes Chris Columbus as the director for these first two movies. Any thoughts of kind of what he did in these first two, and as a director?
Well, I think he started this whole series out quite well in this more child-friendly way with the visuals and the John Williams soundtrack. I definitely like his visual style. That's very good. But he doesn't really take enough risks. I mean, as a screenwriter as well. But these two films, they don't take very many risks. They don't try to change things very much. Whereas the subsequent directors are going to bring in more of their own styles and switch things around in the story structure, and the films ultimately are going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it looks really good. And from a reader's perspective, often what we want after having read a book like this is we want a visual representation of the book exactly. And that's kind of what Columbus gives us, but it turns out that's not a very good way to make a film. The things that make a good book are not the same things that make a good film. And I don't think these are bad films, but I agree that they definitely adhere too closely to the storylines in the book, and they don't. He doesn't change things in a way that make them compelling films.
No.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of sad. I feel sort of bad for Chris Columbus in a way because he really hasn't done anything that's been successful since this. And he's a talented director, but I don't know, like he did Pixels last year, which was awful. And I don't know.
Did he do I Love You, Beth Cooper, I think. Was it?
Yeah, and he did the film adaptation of Rent, which wasn't very good. And so it's too bad because I'm pulling for him. I hope that he he did Home Alone, which is one of my favorite movies, and I'd really like for him to come back. And Goonies, of course.
Do you guys know how much? I know J.K. Rowling was involved in the screenplays and making of these to some degree. Do you know to what extent she was involved?
Do you know, Richard?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think ultimately she just I think she was maybe able to veto a few decisions, but it was her, she was quite adamant that she wanted the films to still be set in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
But
all British cast.
Yeah, but she didn't have overall power, and I think a lot of times she was just letting the filmmakers get on with it.
Okay, because I wondered to what extent these movies were. I know she was very hesitant about releasing the film rights to this, wasn't she? Wasn't it kind of hard to get it out of her? And
well, last time I think we talked about that they got it for cheap. For very cheap.
Okay.
But I think I don't know if I don't have any proof, but I just have the feeling that she was pretty involved. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just sort of the impression I've gotten.
Yeah.
Is that she was involved.
I think it's only the last film that Rowling is listed as a producer.
Okay.
I can't recall her being a producer of any of the other films.
Oh, interesting.
I was wondering though if any of the over correctness as far as sticking to the story in these movies had to do with wanting to please her or wanting to not mess up what she had done. You know?
Well, there's that. Plus, you have fans who are going to nitpick it to death, and so
Right.
I think that that's the other problem. Is that so I think they were probably trying to please them more than anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, most of the fans would still have been quite young by then, so I imagine they were pleased.
Yeah.
It's only kind of having matured a bit and watching these films later on that they don't hold up quite so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had to give it a grade, what would you give it? The movie.
Grade's probably a C plus.
Yeah, I was thinking low B, high C, somewhere in that zone.
Yeah, me too. C plus. We're all on the same page on this one. It looks like so. Not a terrible movie by any means, but I would, if I had to say, does it hold up? Does it not hold up? I'd say no, it doesn't hold up, unfortunately. But doesn't mean it doesn't have some good things. And so I thank you guys for talking about this, and I'm really excited for the next one. If that doesn't hold up, I'll be really disappointed because it's always been my favorite. But I haven't seen it in a long time, so
Yeah.
we get Alfonso Cuarón.
Years. It's been a very long time for that one.
Yeah, we get a new director, Alfonso Cuarón, who's one of my favorite directors in Hollywood, and
Dumbledore.
yeah, we get Death Eaters, we get a bunch of new new Dumbledore. So I think that'll want to be a lot of fun to talk about. So
Definitely, yeah.
So, well, thanks so much, and yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your Saturday.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.